Okay, lesson 3 starts on page 103 in your workbook. And today we're going to learn more about the constant of proportionality. We're going to solve more problems using tables today. So let's look at all these numbers on this list, and we have some units as well. I want you to write down as many equivalent measures as you can. For example, you could write 30 minutes is a half hour. I saw some other ones. 1/10 of an hour is 6 minutes. Okay, what's another one we could use? How about 0.01 meters is 1 centimeter? I want you to write down at least 2 other examples that you can see up there. You can use any of the units and any of the measurements. You might want to pause and do that before you move on. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next lesson. There's a proportional relationship between any length measured in centimeters and the same length measured in millimeters. So if you look at a ruler, there are 10 millimeters in 1 centimeter, 20 in 2. So there's 2 ways of thinking about this proportional relationship. If you know the length of something in centimeters, you can calculate its length in millimeters. So let's complete this first table. What's the constant of proportionality after we do that? So look, 1 was 10, 2 was 20, 3 was 30. So what would 9 be? 9 would be 90 millimeters. 9 centimeters is 90 millimeters. 12.5 would be, maybe you're not sure about that one. Let's go on to 50. If 9 is 90, 50 would be 500. And then we could look for that constant of proportionality so we knew what to do. So if you take, this is always kind of like your y, and this is your x. Okay, when you have a table, so and constant of proportionality is always y over x. So in this case, if I took 90 and divided by 9, what do you get? You get 10, right? The constant was 10. We're multiplying by 10. So 10 times 12.5 is 125. 10 times 88.49 is 884.9. Now you could check these in a calculator. Let's put the answer up here. 10 was our constant of proportionality. Okay, it's what do I multiply by to go from one side of the table to the other? That number is my constant of proportionality. Okay, let's look at this a second way. If we know the length of something in millimeters, can we calculate its length in centimeters? Well, yes. Go back and look at the picture. 10 millimeters is 1 centimeter. 20 is 2. 50 is 5. So 70 would be 7 centimeters. Now let's look for that constant of proportionality. This is your y, this is your x. I'm going to take 7 and divide it by 70. That gives me 1/10, or 0.1. That's another way to write it. Okay, so if I multiply 245 times 1/10, you get 24.5. 4 times 1/10 is 0.4. 699.1 would be 69.91. Okay, multiplying by a tenth is the same as dividing by 10. When we divide by 10, we just move our decimal 1 place to the left. If we multiply by 10, we move one place to the right, right? So, how are the two constants of proportionality related to each other? Well, the first one was 10 over 1 when we go from centimeters to millimeters. But when we go from millimeters to centimeters, it was 1 over 10. 1/10 up here. Let's write it in so that we have it up there, the constant. Okay, so 10, 1, and 1/10, what's the word for these? We talked about this before. These are reciprocals. They're just flipped numbers. Well, let's talk about what that means. To convert from centimeters to millimeters, you can multiply by 10. There's going to be more millimeters. To convert from millimeters to centimeters, you divide by 10 or multiply by a tenth. So remember, you can always just multiply by the reciprocal, but know that relationship, multiplying by a tenth is the same as dividing by 10. All right, and the last activity in your workbook is to go from Pittsburgh to Phoenix. On its way from New York to San Diego, a plane flew over Pittsburgh, St. Louis, Albuquerque, and Phoenix, traveling at a constant speed. Complete the table as you answer the questions. Be prepared to explain your reasoning. So, it said going from Pittsburgh to St. Louis, it took 1 hour, and that was a distance of 550 miles. So what would our speed be? Well, speed is usually in miles per hour, so this was 550 miles in 1 hour. That's your unit rate. Remember, your unit rate is just like your constant of proportionality. So 1 hour and 42 minutes. So what you need to do is figure out what that is as a decimal. So let's do 42 divided by 60, right? Because there's 60 minutes in an hour. And you get 42 divided by 60 gives us 1.7. So this is 1.7 hours. So how far would you go in 1.7 hours? At 550 miles per hour? Well, you would multiply 550 times 1.7, and you would get 935 miles. Now, right, they traveled at a constant speed, it said. So everybody is traveling at 550 miles per hour. No matter where you're going at the speed of 550 miles an hour. So now, if I only went 330 miles, that should be less than an hour, right? Because I'm going to go 550 in an hour. So take the 330 and divide by 550, and that will tell you that you only traveled for 0.6 hours. But you might say, well, let's wait and answer these questions. So what's the distance between St. Louis and Albuquerque? The distance was 935 miles. How many minutes did it take to fly between Albuquerque and Phoenix? So 0.6 hours. Well, that would be 60 minutes in an hour. So take 0.6 times 60. And you'll see you get 36 minutes. Because there's 60 minutes in an hour. So what is the proportional relationship that is represented in this table? Well, right here, the unit rate is your proportional relationship. We are comparing the distance traveled is proportional to the time elapsed. Right? Distance, time. Our units tell us what that relationship is. Now, number 4 is just kind of taking this to a higher level. Diego says the constant of proportionality is 550. We talked about that. That would be true. Andre says the constant of proportionality is 9 1/6. Could you agree with Andre? Think about that. So Diego is talking about miles per hour, because he says it's 550 and our units are miles per hour. What if we divide that by 60 and talk about minutes? 550 divided by 60 is 9 1/6. 0.16667 is 1/6. So this would be, Andre is talking about miles per minute. So they are both correct. They just have different units. Your constant of proportionality is going to depend upon what units you used. Okay, so let's go in our notes now to lesson 3. And what we have here is a table, and we're comparing centimeters to millimeters. And if it's 9 centimeters, we learned it was 90 millimeters. So what's our constant of proportionality here? We're going to take y over x. So that would be 90 divided by 9, which gives us 10, right? So our proportionality, we're multiplying by 10. So we take 2.5 times 10, you get 25. So basically what we're asking is what times 10 would give us 500? Well, that would be 50. What times 10 gives us 67? Or you can do division, right? If we're going to multiply to go this way, we're going to divide. So take 67 and divide it by 10, you would get 6.7. Okay, so our constant proportionality is 10. Now remember, when you go from millimeters to centimeters, we have 70 millimeters, we only have 7 centimeters. When I find that constant, now it is 7 over 70, which is the same as 1/10, or 0.1. So I'm going to take, in your calculator, 245 times 0.1, and that would give me 24.5 centimeters. And here I can take 0.4. Remember, we're going this way, so now we divide by 0.1. 0.4 divided by 0.1 would be 4. And 0.1 divided by 0.1 gives you 1. So 1 millimeter is 0.1 centimeters. Okay, and again we have that reciprocal relationship of 10 over 1 and 1 over 10. 10 over 1 or 1 over 10. Okay, you can do your assignment in the workbook for lesson 2 or lesson 3, and tomorrow we'll probably enter those.